The metallic shriek of the gates pierced Harry's ears, a sound he had longed to hear for years. To him, it was a clear signal, a sonic landmark marking the divide between his dark past and the dawn of a new life. As the fresh air filled his lungs, each breath brought a surge of indescribable joy. The reality of his long-awaited freedom was finally sinking in. "Wow," Harry exclaimed, his gaze sweeping across the world outside the gates. 10 long years locked in that concrete and iron cage. 10 years stolen from my life. Now, at 32, I feel joyful, but also bewildered by the magnitude of this freedom that suddenly unfolds before me. A guard approached Harry, offering a worn cardboard box containing his belongings from a decade ago. The clothes that once fit him now hung loosely, too big for his slender frame. The robust young man who had entered those gates 10 years ago had been transformed, worn down by the harsh prison routine. The reality of his freedom, so sudden and overwhelming, was still struggling to settle in his mind. The guards looked at him with farewell expressions, their lips curving in polite smiles. "Good luck," they said. And finally, the coin of freedom dropped into the well of his consciousness. Yes, he was free. Freedom was palpable. It was real, and it was his. For a decade, Harry had been confined to a maximum security prison cell, a victim of injustice, condemned for a crime he never committed. The legal process had been a strange and opaque storm, chance and circumstance conspiring against him, painting him as the villain in the jury's mind. He was sentenced to 22 years, a severe punishment that seemed destined to consume the best years of his life. However, after 10 years of exemplary conduct, demonstrating integrity amidst the prison chaos, Harry earned a chance for freedom. But his journey wasn't easy. He faced struggles and obstacles, desperately trying to appeal his sentence and prove his innocence. Despite his efforts, his attempts seemed futile. The seemingly irrevocable conviction stood like an impenetrable wall, resistant to any efforts to bring it down. The weight of the injustice, the relentless resistance of the sentence that had condemned him for so long, seemed unshakable. Harry's spirit, forged in the fires of a decade-long imprisonment, remained unbroken. He had faced every hardship head-on, his chin held high, his resolve unwavering. Finally, the prison gates, his tormentors for so long, swung open, ushering him into the uncertain embrace of freedom. The familiar space where loved ones awaited released inmates held a bittersweet poignancy. Harry knew, with a pang of loneliness, that his world had shifted. Most of those who had once been close had abandoned him during his darkest hour. He was prepared to face this new chapter alone, but as he emerged, a sliver of hope ignited in the distance. The car sat parked, and the sound of his name broke the quiet. Turning, his heart pounded as he recognized the driver. It was Francis, his steadfast friend, a beacon of loyalty in a sea of betrayal. A smile, etched with the lines of years spent behind bars, spread across Harry's face as he rushed towards the car. "Francis," he exclaimed, his voice thick with emotion, and grasped his friend's hand, tears welling in his eyes. "I can't thank you enough for being here. You never abandoned me, brother." Francis returned the embrace, his own face a tableau of relief and joy. "Of course, my friend. How could I? Now tell me everything. Let's get out of this place. I know you're itching to leave it behind." With a contented nod, Harry slipped into the passenger seat, a wave of relief washing over him. As they drove, Francis filled him in on the whirlwind of changes that had transpired during his absence. They had grown up together in a shelter, dreaming of building a business, forging a better future, but fate had intervened, separating them when Harry was imprisoned. Francis had carried on, building their agricultural supply dealership into a thriving success. Francis, sensitive to the unspoken weight of Harry's experience, carefully steered the conversation away from the painful past. But as Harry visibly relaxed, Francis felt compelled to address a matter that had been weighing heavily on his mind. "Remember, brother," he began hesitantly, "this might seem crazy, but I need to tell you. I think I saw Layla. I was at a farm just a few kilometers from here," Francis began, his voice taking on a somber tone. "Stopped at one of those roadside restaurants for lunch. The woman I saw, she had changed her hair, the color and style, but she looked so much like Layla, and she seemed more alive than both of us combined." A heavy silence descended upon the car as Harry absorbed the weight of Francis's words. Finally, he spoke, his voice filled with a fierce determination. "Francis, I've told you before, something was wrong about Layla's death. I didn't kill her. How could they convict me without even finding a body? The media was hounding me, but the whole thing felt manipulated. I was framed for a murder that never happened, a crime with no evidence. No matter what, I'll prove my innocence and uncover the truth." Francis nodded, his expression equally grim. "I know, friend. It always felt strange to me. And that woman who looked like Layla, she wasn't alone. There was a man with her." Francis's revelation added a layer of complexity to the already tangled web of mystery. The wave of indignation threatening to consume Harry was met with a deep breath, a desperate search for a sliver of serenity. His 2-year marriage to Layla had brought more pain and loss than joy. They had tried desperately to have children, only to discover Harry was sterile. This revelation cast a long shadow over their relationship, amplified by the relentless scrutiny of Clementine and Edgar, his in-laws. They couldn't bear the thought of their daughter married to an orphan, and Harry's infertility fueled their disdain. They were determined to separate them, making their lives a living hell. Despite their efforts, Harry and Layla remained united, ignoring their in-laws' hostility and seeking solutions for their infertility. A ray of hope arrived with the success of the agricultural supply business he and Francis had started together. With their earnings, Harry bought a beautiful countryside house for them. But after his imprisonment, that house was acquired by a wealthy farmer. The descent into chaos began when Layla mysteriously disappeared shortly after the house purchase. The signs suggested she was dead, and to Harry's horror, he became the prime suspect. The investigation moved with alarming speed, leaving him bewildered and confused. The entire process felt surreal, an incomprehensible nightmare. Without the interference of Clementine and Edgar, who used their wealth to bribe the court, Harry wouldn't have been convicted. His ineffective defense lawyer only added to his helplessness as his in-laws orchestrated a twisted plot. The possibility of Layla being alive, a flicker of hope in the face of a decade of despair, ignited a maelstrom of emotions within Harry. A new wave of questions crashed over him. Had she started a new life? Built a family? While he had been condemned to a decade of confinement. A decade stolen from him? "Harry, I've got a plan." Andre's voice broke through the silence, pulling him back to the present. "Some leads? Maybe a way to find out if Layla's truly alive." He paused, adding, "But first you need some rest." Harry nodded, his gaze fixed on the passing landscape. They were approaching Andre's house, a haven where he could finally exhale, recharge. The prison had drained him, physically and mentally, and before embarking on the quest for truth, he needed time to adjust. Stepping out of the car, he felt the strange discomfort of comfort, a luxury he felt undeserving of. He sank onto the couch, the television providing a background hum against the silence of the house. Despite the freedom, his body resisted the change. His heart still echoed the rhythm of his years behind bars, the weight of unseen walls pressing against his chest. He realized his true battle was only just beginning. A week later, the two friends gathered for a strategic conversation. "Harry," Francis began, his tone firm, "I've been thinking. We should go back to that town. The owner of the roadside restaurant might have information about that woman I saw. Our chances might be slim, but it's the only lead we have. If we want to unravel this web of mysteries, now is the time." Harry listened, his expression a mixture of skepticism and a desperate hope. "Are we relying on luck, Francis?" he questioned, his voice laced with doubt. "A place like that, countless people pass through every day. How can we be sure that woman would even return?" Despite Harry's reservations, Francis remained resolute. With compelling arguments and unwavering determination, he persuaded Harry that this was their only chance to move forward. Agreeing to take this leap of faith, they embarked on the journey, heading to the small town and the restaurant that held the key to their answers. The dirt road leading to the restaurant wound its way through rustic scenery. A faded sign proclaimed, "Welcome to Billy's." As they entered, they were greeted by a man with a lifetime etched into his wrinkles and white hair. This was Billy, the owner. Francis, a natural negotiator with a charming demeanor, quickly established a rapport with Billy. They exchanged pleasantries, discussing everything from the road to the food, until Francis subtly steered the conversation to their true purpose. "You know, Billy," Francis began, "it's unusual to see couples in a trucker's bar. Most of your customers are solo travelers, but the last time I was here, a beautiful couple caught my attention." Billy, wiping a glass, looked thoughtful. "Yeah, it's rare," he confirmed. "But I remember the day you're talking about. You mean Frank and Calliope Lawford?" Francis, with a touch of finesse, continued. "Calliope, huh? They seem lovely. How long have they been married?" Billy shrugged, his gaze drifting into the past. "Well, they've been married for about 9 years. She arrived around here 10 years ago, seemingly out of nowhere. Frank's always lived here, inherited the land from his father, one of the biggest farmers in the region. Calliope, though, has always been reserved, a bit of a mystery. But they seem to love each other a lot. They even have 2 little ones." He gave a shy smile. Harry hung on to every word Billy uttered, his gaze fixed on the old man. With each detail, his heart pounded faster, a surge of hope coursing through him. As Francis prepared to ask the final question, Harry could barely breathe. "Billy," Francis began, sliding a $10 bill across the counter as a silent thank you. "My company specializes in agricultural supplies, and I believe Mr. Lawford could be a valuable client. Would you mind sharing his farm's address?" A sly grin spread across Billy's face. He nodded, scribbling the address on a napkin and pushing it towards Andre. Francis quickly snatched it, glancing at the address before handing it to Harry. The paper held the answer to his relentless questions, a map to a hidden past. The choice was his: embrace the truth, whatever it may be, or live forever haunted by uncertainty. Harry swallowed hard, staring at the napkin as if it held a map to buried treasure. Then, with a deep breath, he made his decision. He would go to the farm, uncover the truth, no matter the cost. And what would you do in Harry's place? Would you seek the truth, no matter the consequences? Share your thoughts in the comments. The farm Harry approached seemed to belong to a world of wealth and luxury. Lush fields stretched out, and a grand house stood majestically. His heart hammered against his ribs as he approached the porch, a mixture of anxiety and anticipation coursing through him. The creak of the door made him hold his breath. And there she stood, Layla. Her appearance was different, her hair styled elegantly, a color he didn't remember. But beneath the changes, the familiar, unmistakable features of his ex-wife were undeniable. She was alive, defying all odds, standing right before him. As their eyes locked, the color drained from Layla's face. She raised her hand, silently begging him to leave. But Harry didn't retreat. His determination was stronger than ever. "So now you're the one asking me to leave, Layla?" Harry's voice was firm, his gaze unwavering. "I won't leave until you tell me the whole truth." Layla hesitated for a moment, a resigned sigh escaping her lips. "Fine, Harry, but please," she whispered urgently, "speak softly. My husband might hear." Her expression was a mix of fear and desperation, reflecting the precarious position she found herself in. Harry's gaze hardened, absorbing the implications of her words. "So he doesn't know?" he questioned, bitterness lacing his voice. "To him, you're really Calliope. What story did you tell him, Layla? Do you have any idea where I've been for the past 10 years? Do you know what it's like to rot behind bars while you live here in luxury? I won't speak softly. The least you deserve is to be exposed." Layla swallowed hard, beginning to explain. It was all a carefully orchestrated scheme by her parents, Edgar and Clementine. Once a wealthy family, they had fallen on hard times and never accepted Layla marrying Harry, a man of humble origins, a man who, as they later discovered, couldn't have children. But everything changed when they met Frank, a man of considerable wealth and influence. They saw him as their chance to reclaim their lost fortune. With Layla married to him, they could rise again, living off their son-in-law's wealth. But there was one major obstacle: Harry. And so, Layla and her parents devised a horrifying plan. They faked Layla's death, allowing her to assume the identity of Mary Frank. By dying, Layla escaped a divorce that could jeopardize the inheritance her parents craved, paving the way for the luxurious life they now enjoyed. And Harry, the man who truly loved Layla, became the innocent victim of their cruel game. Clementine and Edgar, using their connections and illicit bribes, manipulated the system, ensuring Harry's unjust imprisonment for a decade. The anger that simmered within Harry was a palpable force as he roared, "I can't believe you would do this, Layla. You stole 10 years of my life. What did I ever do to deserve this? I lost my youth because of you." His cry echoed through the luxurious surroundings, a raw accusation for anyone within earshot. Layla desperately tried to deflect the torrent of his fury, but nothing could stop the storm. He wept with rage, each tear a stinging reminder of his unjust imprisonment. He stood before the woman he once loved, the woman whose actions had condemned him to a decade of torment. Without another word to his ex-wife, Harry turned and walked away, leaving a promise hanging in the air: justice would be served. Frank, Layla's husband, had heard the heated exchange. He demanded the truth from his wife. Upon discovering the vile reality, he not only threw Layla out of their home, but also reported her to the authorities for identity fraud. The entire web of deceit that had led to Harry's conviction was brought to light. Layla, Clementine, Edgar, and their accomplices faced trial. They were sentenced to prison and ordered to pay significant compensation to Harry for the moral damages inflicted upon him. But justice, while satisfying, was a meager consolation. Layla, Clementine, and Edgar now experienced the same cruelty they had inflicted on Harry. Frank, a victim of their schemes, found himself unexpectedly united with Harry. Shocked by the deception, he joined Harry on this journey for justice. Justice had been served. Harry, finally free, could begin the life he had envisioned during those long, arduous years behind bars. He had vanquished the ghosts of his past, his ex-wife now imprisoned alongside her parents and the others who had wronged him. A new chapter, filled with hope and promise, was dawning. Despite the vindication, Harry couldn't find joy in revenge. All he desired was the life that had been stolen from him, the years he'd lost to the people he'd loved and trusted. With Francis by his side, a steadfast friend throughout his ordeal, Harry slowly began to rebuild his life. The compensation he received allowed him to restart his agricultural supply business, which gradually flourished once more. He found solace in routine, in the embrace of work, building a brighter future. Years passed, and Harry made peace with his past. The freedom he had dreamt of became a reality. The wound of betrayal still ached, but he chose to move forward, to focus on what remained possible. He found peace. His story is a testament to the fact that justice, though delayed, always prevails. Even in the face of unimaginable hardship, there is always the possibility of starting over, of finding joy again. Harry realized that freedom meant more than simply escaping prison. It was about finding the strength to overcome the past, to forgive himself and others, and to have the courage to begin anew. That, in itself, was a story of success. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time,